A pleasant day to you icons and lady icons. Welcome to the second module for your subject General Biology 1, which is entitled The Building Blocks of Life. For this module, we will be talking about the different biomolecules that constitutes life on Earth. Whenever we're talking about biomolecules, these are the different building blocks of life that are very significant to all living organisms. Biomolecules is actually under the intricate discipline known as biochemistry. And biochemistry is considered as the linking bridge between chemistry, which is an example of a physical science, and biology, which is a part of the life science. Biomolecules constitutes the different cell organelles that will later on produce the cells that is present on our body, which is considered as the basic unit of life. All biomolecules are actually possessing different organic compounds, and we're actually going to consider some of them in this discussion. So, your prior knowledge regarding your Science 9 will be very handy for our discussion for this particular part of your module. Whenever we are considering here the concept of biomolecules, let's once again have a short trip down the memory lane with William PROUT. William PROUT is actually an English chemist and biochemist noted for his discoveries concerning digestion and metabolic chemistry. William PROUT actually considered food that we eat. They're actually being composed of saccharinous, oleaginous, and albuminous. Saccharinous, these are known as the different sugars, while oleaginous, these are now the different types of oils, and albuminous, it is now the different types of proteins that is incorporated on the food materials that we are going to eat. Whenever we are talking about the concept of biomolecules, we are actually going to encounter two terms here. The first one, they are known as the building blocks of larger molecules known as the monomers, while the combination of monomers is known as the polymers. Or these are the different long molecule consisting of many similar building blocks. Whenever we are actually going to consider monomers and polymers, they're actually created based on the following processes. They can actually be created or broken down. Let's simply start with the first one. We have dehydration reaction. Dehydration reaction is the synthesis of polymers from few monomers by means of giving off water molecules. Or it simply means that you need to remove water molecules that is present in the junction of the different monomers to create longer chains or to create polymers. It is also included on your module, but you can also see here in our diagram, sorry if some part of it will be covered by the video, but I am going to show to you how it is done later on in our discussion whenever we are discussing the different types of monomers and polymers and biomolecules. On the latter part of our discussion, I'm going to show you here how the different types of dehydration reaction or the synthesis and also the breakdown of biomolecules are being done. For the dehydration reaction, once again, it's just synthesizing a polymer. And as you can observe here, we have here the presence of a short polymer and an unlinked monomer. For the dehydration reaction to happen, we're actually going to remove here a hydrogen ion, while the hydroxide ion will also be removed. Since this would be negatively charged and the other one will be positively charged, they will actually link together to create now the water molecule that is present here that will simply be released. And once this happens, longer chain of polymers will simply be created. For instance, as I mentioned earlier, always remember that the different materials that will simply be removed during the synthesis of a polymer are the following. The hydrogen ions, which is positively charged, and the hydroxide, which is negatively charged. Now, in the case of the OH or the hydroxide, it will always combine with the positively charged hydrogen ion for it to create H2O. And if you're going to observe, since this is positively charged and this is negatively charged, they will attract with each other. And at the same time, they will just complement with each other since this is lacking an electron while this one is possessing an extra electron. So, we have here the presence of a hydroxide and the presence of a hydrogen ion. When they combine, they will now produce the water molecule. And this water molecule will simply be released during the process of dehydration reaction. Now, how is it done? So let's simply zoom in on a particular type of chemical structure. For instance, we have here a short polymer. The short polymer that is present on the video presentation earlier and also on your module, page number 2. It is combined with OH. Then we have here the presence of hydrogen. And then your monomer, which is attached to hydrogen, then oxygen, then another hydrogen. Okay? Since this is carbon, it will not be balanced if there will not be any forms of connections. So let's just simply assume that we have here the presence of another OH, then another hydrogen. Then in this case, hydrogen, hydrogen, OH, then hydrogen, OH, OH. So let's simply consider here that these are actually the different connections that are present in these monomers, okay? So once again, they are just sample monomers and short polymer, just like what is stated on the illustration earlier and on your module, page number 2. Now, how is it done? We are actually going to remove the hydrogen ion that is present here on the longer polymer. When we remove this, it will now create hydrogen ions. Then, the bond that is present here will be simply removed. Since we remove a hydrogen ion, one electron will stay on the long polymer, so it will be negatively charged. Then, in the case of our monomer, we are now going to remove the hydroxide. And hydroxide, remember, it is negatively charged, or OH negative. So please take note, whenever we are talking about this representation, we are neglecting here the pattern. Remember that hydroxide will always be equivalent to OH and not HO. That is the proper way of writing hydroxide. Now, if we are going to remove the hydroxide, it will also carry an electron. So in this case, your unlinked monomer will be positively charged. Let's simply focus on the the hydrogen ion and the hydroxide. When they combine, they will release now water. Then, in the case of our short polymer and unlinked monomer, since this is negative and this is positively charged, they will now attract each other and they will now create a bond between the two of them, creating a 4-carbon polymer, which is the product of the OH, which is simply the product of the dehydration reaction. And once again, do not forget that you removed H2O. So that is the process on how dehydration reaction happens. Let's proceed to the next part. Other than the dehydration reaction, there is also the presence of the process known as dehydrolysis. If the dehydration reaction, you are removing here hydrogen ions and hydroxide both on the short polymer and on the monomer. In the case of hydrolysis, you are now breaking down a larger polymer to smaller units by means of adding water. Hydrolysis process, you are now adding water. You are now bombarding the chemical equation, the chemical formula, and the chemical structure with the presence of water for them to split apart. Now, in the case of hydrolysis, or the breakdown of a polymer, we have here the presence of a long polymer, which is once again possessing 4 carbon backbones. Then, with the addition of water, it will now technically split. Water will simply be split to hydrogen ions and hydroxide. Then, the shorter polymer will be created, and an unlinked monomer will also be created. So sir, is it possible that water will penetrate any part of the equation or any part of the chemical structure? The answer is yes. Once there is the presence of water, it can now unlink the different polymers. Just like what we did earlier, just like what you had observed on the demonstration that I have done, we're just going to do the process on a separate or on an opposite way. Do it backwards. Starting off with, as an example, we have here a 4-carbon compound possessing hydrogen, 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 then OH, let's consider hydrogen, OH, OH, hydrogen, OH, OH, then OH. We have here our 4-carbon compound. Then, if water will actually be included here, once again, just like what happened earlier, we have H2O, which will simply be split into hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions. They will actually enter the equation and they will remove the bond that is present on carbon number 3 and carbon number 4. When the bond is already not included in their structure, the hydrogen ion and the hydroxide ion will now penetrate their structure. And once they penetrated the structure, they will now create the monomers and short polymer that we have observed earlier. And there you have it. This is the hydrolysis process, hydrolysis reaction.